Now, Israel has carried out its first airstrikes on targets in the Lebanese capital, Beirut, since a truce agreed in November with the militant group Hezbollah. The Israeli military warned people to evacuate parts of a Beirut suburb. They said they were responding to earlier rocket strikes from Lebanon into northern Israel. Hezbollah has denied firing the missiles. Israel also struck parts of southern Lebanon. So how are people in Beirut coping with this renewal of hostilities? I asked Ronnie Chattar, who is a political commentator based in the Lebanese capital.
In a way, it's all too familiar. And the ceasefire went into effect just a few months ago. And I'll give you a personal example. Yesterday, I was in the southern suburbs of Beirut. And today, a colleague of mine was taking his family away from the southern suburbs into the hills east of Beirut. And other colleagues were going to the southern suburbs to actually film the destruction of a building that Israel targeted. And of course, there's the sound of drones in the sky. There's the explosions echoing in the background. Unfortunately, today feels less like March 2025 and more like September or October of 2024, which is a bad sign. And that the ceasefire was meant to prevent all of this from happening, yet it's happening today.
Israel says it's responding to rocket fire from Lebanon, which Hezbollah says wasn't them. So if not Hezbollah, then who else might be behind this?
If it's not Hezbollah, it would be a sub-state outfit that has indirect or direct links to that group, in that all paramilitary and sub-state activity in recent history has been dominated by Hezbollah. And of course, now you have a degraded Hezbollah, a handicapped and disfigured proxy militia that may not be able to control everything that is happening all the time. Add to that, these rockets were launched from north of the Litani River rather than south. And the Lebanese army showed photos of what looked like primitive rocket launchers. So all that said, the responsibility at the end of the day, the overwhelming burden, goes on the Lebanese state and what the Lebanese army can do in preventing something like this from happening. But unfortunately, if recent memory proves anything, it's that you have a paralyzed Lebanese government and in many ways a handicapped Lebanese expression of sovereignty even after war ends, that the Lebanese army is still not able to dominate or exercise full control over all of Lebanon's geography.
Right. And so Israel is saying that it will continue these attacks unless the Lebanese government enforces the ceasefire agreement. From what you've said, it sounds like the Lebanese government is in no position to enforce a ceasefire.
The ceasefire deal, which is really a better enforced UN Security Council Resolution 1701, which ended a war between Israel and Hezbollah nearly 2 decades ago, is a buffer zone, if you will, for Hezbollah south of the Litani River, and that Hezbollah's infrastructure must be dismantled entirely in that part of Lebanon. Now add to that, Israel remains 5 what it deems strategic sites along the border north into Lebanon, and they have not fully withdrawn yet from Lebanon. But that said, the ceasefire does not talk about Hezbollah as it exists or any sub-state group as it exists north of the Litani River. That is meant to be Lebanon's burden, better expressed in an earlier Security Council Resolution 1559. Now, the Lebanese government, the Lebanese president, who's been ushered in recently, Lebanon had no president for the better part of the last 2.5 years. We have a current president, a former army commander, who has said his intention is to neutralize Lebanon from regional war, and that all weapons belong to the state, not to the sub-state. How that happens in the near term, it's very difficult to see.
OK, thanks for talking us through that, Ronnie. Political commentator Ronnie Chattar in Beirut.